more latitude when it comes to publicizing a juvenile's identity when they are wanted for a violent crime.
As News 13's Kimberly King reports, the change comes as cities report an increase in teenage crime.
Whether the new law meant to hold teens accountable for committing murder will actually have an impact to deter crime depends on who you ask. Eddie Caldwell is general counsel for the Sheriff's Association.
When you've got a murderer on the loose or a rapist on the loose or some other heinous criminal, but the victims of the first crime need to know that everything's being done.
The new law allows a judge, or in some cases police, permission to release a picture or a mugshot of a teen suspect charged with murder to get them in custody.
What this does is it just makes it easier for law enforcement to blast somebody's picture. It is a chipping away from a law that it took us far too long to get on the books.
Society as a whole recognizes that young people are different than adults.
And therein lies the controversy.
There is, to some degree, a need for certain crimes committed by our youth to be dealt with in a particular way.
50-year-old Michael Hall has a personal story he candidly shares. Michael, I know you were in prison for some very serious charges.
Attempted murder and armed robbery.
He's now making a point to make a difference mentoring and connecting with youth. He feels tougher laws won't solve much deeper problems. They're saying that youth teen crime has gone up. So what do you do with that?
You saw one at a time. And does that mean, well, while you're working on the one at a time, we arrest the others? Not at all.
There will always be controversy around the questions of how a child could end up committing a heinous crime as a child still in adults' care. But regardless of the answer to that very difficult question, this law goes into effect December 1st. Reporting from Asheville, Kimberly King, News 13.
To rethink the plans to close Rikers in 2027. He says it's a public safety issue, and if Rikers is closed, thousands of dangerous criminals will end up on the street.
Are we as a city willing to say that 2,000 extremely dangerous people, because we don't have enough space, we're going to turn them back onto the streets and back to the communities that they committed these crimes in the first place?
Mayor also pointed out that the cost of building 4 jails, community jails in the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn have skyrocketed.
Historic step here in New York City in support of the Muslim community.
Mayor Adams announced new guidelines clearing the way for the Muslim call to prayer to bring out freely.
For too long, there has been confusion about which communities are allowed to amplify their calls to prayer. Today, we are cutting red tape and saying clearly, if you are a mosque or a house of worship of any kind, you do not have to apply for a permit to amplify your call to Friday prayer.
Under the new initiative, the call to prayer can be broadcast every Friday between 12:30 and 1:30 p.m. during the sunset prayers every evening during Ramadan. Council to rethink the plans to close Rikers in 2027. He says it's a public safety issue, and if Rikers is closed, thousands of dangerous criminals will end up on the street.
Are we as a city willing to say that 2,000 extremely dangerous people, because we don't have enough space, we're going to turn them back onto the streets and back to the communities that they committed these crimes in the first place?
Mayor also pointed out that the cost of building 4 jails, community jails in the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn have.
City each day, the battle grows over where to house them.
Yeah, city officials point a finger of blame at the Biden administration. Federal officials are pointing right back at the city and state to do more. Eyewitness News reporter Janice Yu with the story from Midtown.
Tempers are flaring in the community over the city's decision to house migrants in certain locations and use them as emergency shelters. Meanwhile, tension is brewing between the city, state, and the federal government over this ongoing crisis.
Save our children! Save our children!
Hundreds gathered on Staten Island once again Monday evening.
Keep on fighting!
to protest New York City's decision to house migrants in the building that used to be the St. John Villa Academy. The school closed back in 2018 and the city bought the property then.
This cannot stand. This is not right. This must end now. St. John Villa. It's the worst place you could possibly put individuals.
Local leaders sued New York City, attempting to put a stop to its plan, but after some back and forth, migrants are allowed to stay at the makeshift shelter for now, but those in the neighborhood continue to show their disapproval. Meanwhile, tension between the city, state, and federal government is brewing. In a letter to Mayor Adams and Governor Kathy Hochul, the Department of Homeland Security offered suggestions, but no tangible resources for the ongoing crisis. Among the suggestions, improving data collection, planning, case management, and communication.
No, we're not going to give you the right to work. We're not going to give you any places for people to be able to house. We're not going to do an emergency declaration. We're not going to fund this. New York, this is your problem.
And just last week, Governor Hochul criticized the administration, saying the migrant crisis originated with the federal government and therefore it should be up to them to help fix it. In response to the letter from the Department of Homeland Security, Mayor Adams says he is grateful for the collaboration, but says still nothing has been done to fix the issue that's happening.
This morning, a young man armed with a gun and extra ammo who was arrested yesterday at a Goose Creek CISD school is facing a misdemeanor charge and is now out on a $100 bond. Police say a Baytown resident saw a man walking toward the Peter E. Highland Center openly carrying a handgun and ammunition. Police then arrested former Goose Creek CISD student, 18-year-old Emmanuel Lopez. The district says the school was secured while police responded. Officials are praising both Baytown police and district police for that quick response. Lopez is not due in court again until September the 1st.
Business opportunity, pouring your entire life savings into the opportunity, and then just as you're about to open, you're told the entire business needs to be on hold. For the owners of this Astoria dispensary, this summer has been a roller coaster.
I was convicted of a cannabis crime in 2015. I served a 2-year prison stint.
This is Jeremy Rivera's second chance. After securing a license for a cannabis dispensary, Rivera and his business partner poured in their life savings into the business.
We're over $300,000 of our own money.
But if you look inside the Turp Bros cannabis dispensary in Astoria,
shelves are empty. We were currently in a hold.
That's because earlier this summer, a state Supreme Court judge blocked new dispensaries from opening in New York State after a lawsuit filed by veterans who claimed they've been left out of the licensing process. At the time, Rivera was just about ready for his grand opening.
Not opening was a real hit to the gut.
After weeks of uncertainty in a hearing Friday morning, Supreme Court Justice Kevin Bryant lifted the hold, but only for 23 cannabis dispensaries that had already been deemed ready to open.
As such, those licensees identified by the Office of Cannabis Management will be deemed exempt from the injunction.
Rivera owns one of those 23 dispensaries.
As it looks right now, by early next week, I should be proceeding and receiving my license to open up my doors.
But Erica Ford is still waiting to open her doors. Ford's nonprofit Life Camp has one of the 400 dispensary licenses in New York State that remain on hold as the lawsuit filed by veterans plays out.
I think that we've done everything that the state has asked us to do, and for us to get caught up in this lawsuit is unfair.
New York State's Office of Cannabis Management reacted to Friday's hearing saying, quote, "While today's ruling is a disappointment, we are committed to working with the Cannabis Control Board to find a way forward that does not derail our efforts to bring the most equitable cannabis market in the nation to life," end quote. So again, this is one of the few dispensaries that is now able to open throughout New York State. 400 remain on hold. The next hearing in this case is scheduled for September.
Is attacked. It's the third one this week. This time it happened at a Cheshire facility. Now the union is speaking out. News 12's Angelica Taruno has the story.
He was released late last night and he's recovering at home right now.
The State Department of Corrections says an inmate began to punch a correctional officer at Cheshire Correctional Institute while trays of food were being served for dinner on Thursday.
He was going to use the radio to call for assistance, and he lost the radio when the inmate punched him in the face and in the stomach.
Sean Howard, president of the AFSCME Local 387, says even though it was a matter of seconds, the outcome could have been much worse.
20 seconds can feel like 20 minutes inside that environment.
This is the third officer to be assaulted at a correctional facility this week. On Tuesday, 2 correction officers were stabbed by an inmate with a sharpened toothbrush at Gardner Correctional Institute in Newtown.
Morale is at an all-time low. I've been doing this for 19 and a half years, and I've never seen it this bad.
Howard says they feel like state lawmakers have failed them.
Sit down with people that actually do the job so we can sit there and talk about how we could change this to do our jobs more safely and efficiently.
Governor Ned Lamont said in a statement which read in part, "Any attack on a CO is unacceptable and must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." He also says his administration is always willing to hear the thoughts of those on the front lines on how to improve the safety of correctional facilities.
We will do our jobs, we will protect each other, and we'll watch each other's back. That's all we can do, because all we have is each other inside of that environment.
The inmate involved in Thursday's attack was taken to the McDougall Walker Correctional Institution's restrictive housing unit, and the incident is still in active investigation. Angelica Truno.